On the day Anita's eldest son was supposed to marry the love of his life, a simple blood test changed everything. The results said Joshua wasn't her son. 26 years of motherhood, gone in a single moment. But if he isn't her child, then where is her real son? And who had the power to swap him without her knowing? Let me take you back. Anita was a proud single mother. She had raised 3 boys, Joshua, Daniel, and Michael, all on her own after her husband, Emeka, walked out years ago. He had left her for a younger woman, abandoning his responsibilities, leaving Anita to struggle alone. And she did struggle. But no matter how hard it got, she poured her heart into those boys. She told herself, one day, these boys will rise, and I'll sit proudly, knowing I gave them everything. Now, fast forward to Joshua's wedding day, the eldest son, the golden child. Anita was glowing with pride. Her son was about to marry the love of his life, Lola. Guests filled the hall, laughter filled the air, and for once, life felt good. But then, something happened. You see, part of the marriage process included some medical tests, just routine, nothing unusual. But when the results came back, Lola noticed something odd. Her fiancé's blood type didn't match with his supposed mother, Anita. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Maybe the lab mixed things up. But Lola wasn't the type to let things slide. So she confronted the hospital directly. And what they told her was chilling. There was no mix-up, the doctor said firmly. These are the correct results. Lola stood frozen. If the results were correct, then Joshua, the man she was about to marry, the son Anita had raised for 26 years, was not biologically related to her at all. Imagine hearing that, just hours before your wedding. When Lola broke the news to Joshua, he was stunned. But Anita? She nearly collapsed. Tears welled up in her eyes as her entire world came crashing down. She kept repeating, "No, no, no, that's impossible. I carried him. I gave birth to him." But the evidence was staring them all in the face. The wedding continued, because what else could they do? But behind the smiles, behind the music, there was tension. Guests laughed and danced, but Anita couldn't focus. She sat quietly in a corner, her hands trembling, her mind spinning with questions. If Joshua isn't my biological son, then where is my real child? And how did this even happen? Late that night, while everyone else celebrated, Anita slipped away into her thoughts. The hospital denied a mix-up. So, what if someone had deliberately done this? And only one name flashed in her mind, Emeka. The man who abandoned her. The man who despised her. Could he have switched her baby out of revenge, just to hurt her? And if so, where was her true son? That was the night Anita's quiet life turned into a storm. And trust me, what she was about to uncover would shake her more than she could ever imagine. Have you ever had a moment where your whole past feels like a lie? That's exactly how Anita felt after Joshua's wedding day. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. Every time she looked at her son, the boy she had raised, the boy who called her mother, all she could hear was that doctor's voice echoing in her head. There was no mix-up. But Anita was not the type to keep calm over something like this. No. She needed answers, real answers. So one hot afternoon, instead of pacing around her small living room, Anita grabbed her handbag and took the first bus to the one place she had avoided for years, the hospital where Joshua was born. The moment she stepped inside, a wave of memories hit her. The scent of antiseptic, the sound of beeping machines, nurses in white uniforms hurrying past, everything felt the same, yet completely different. Her chest tightened as she imagined that night all over again, the pain, the screams, the exhaustion. And then, the tiny baby placed in her arms. But was he truly hers? Anita walked up to the front desk, her voice trembling but firm. "Please, I need information." I gave birth here 20-something years ago. I need to know about the nurse that delivered my child that night. The young nurse behind the desk looked puzzled. Madam, that's a long time ago. Do you have her name? Anita shook her head quickly. No, but I remember her face. Dark-skinned, average height, she had this birthmark on her neck. She was the one that stayed with me through the night. The nurse frowned, tapping on her computer. Hold on, let me ask the matrons who have been here longer. Minutes later, an older nurse approached. She studied Anita carefully, then sighed. You must be talking about Nurse Chinya. But, she hasn't worked here in more than 20 years. Anita's heart skipped. What do you mean she hasn't worked here? She left suddenly. No explanations. No forwarding address. We tried to reach her a few times, but it was as if she disappeared. No one ever heard from her again. Anita felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. The one person who could answer her questions, the one person who might know the truth about her child, was gone. But she refused to give up. Please, Anita pleaded, her voice breaking. Someone must know where she went. A friend, a family member, anything. The older nurse exchanged a look with her colleague. I remember she once mentioned living around Enugu before she came here. She had a younger sister, but I can't recall her name. That's all I know. It wasn't much. Just scraps of memory. But to Anita, it was a starting point. Anita's heels clicked against the hospital's old corridor as she tried to steady her breathing. The words from the last nurse still echoed in her ears. Chinya had a younger sister in Enugu. It wasn't enough. Enugu was too vast. She needed something real, something she could hold in her hands. She found herself back in the records office, where an elderly clerk sat hunched over dusty files. The woman looked up at her with weary eyes. You're still here? The clerk asked softly. Yes, Anita said, voice breaking. Please. I can't live without something concrete. Anything that can point me to Chinya. The clerk studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Slowly, she pulled open a bottom drawer, one most people would never bother with. From it, she lifted a thick, leather-bound register with cracked edges and placed it on the desk. This is the hospital staff profile book, she said. Every nurse who ever worked here filled in their details, address, emergency contact, everything. If Chinya was here, you'll find her. Anita's hands trembled as she flipped through the yellowing pages until her eyes froze on a familiar name. Chinya Okafor, Staff ID 217. Residential address, number 8 Morris Street, Coal Camp, Enugu. Emergency contact, Ngozi Okafor, younger sister. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she wasn't chasing whispers. She was holding proof. This is her, Anita whispered, fighting back tears. The clerk nodded slowly. That was years ago. I don't know if she still lives there, but it's all I can give you. Be careful. Sometimes the truth we seek is heavier than the lies we've lived with. Anita thanked her and left, clutching the details like treasure. Days later, she stood in front of number 8 Morris Street. The house was old, its paint peeling, but children's laughter spilled out from the yard. A woman in her 50s came to the gate, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Good afternoon, Anita greeted. Please, did a woman named Chinya Okafor ever live here? The woman's face softened with recognition. Oh, yes. Chinya. She stayed here some years ago. But she left, relocated to Enugu proper. She said she was moving in with her younger sister, Ngozi. Anita's heart skipped. Do you know where in Enugu? The woman nodded, disappearing briefly into the house. When she returned, she handed Anita a slip of paper. I kept this address from when she left. She told me if anyone ever came asking, I should direct them. Anita's fingers shook as she read it. Another address. Another lead. She held it close to her chest, whispering under her breath, "I'm coming for you, my son." For the first time in years, Anita felt the ground shifting. The trail wasn't cold anymore. It was alive. And it was leading her straight into Enugu. The journey into Enugu felt longer than the distance on the map. Anita sat by the bus window, her fingers wrapped tightly around the slip of paper with the new address. Every bump in the road rattled her bones, but it was nothing compared to the pounding of her heart. She whispered her son's name under her breath, though she had never even held him. "My child, just let this be true." When the bus pulled into the terminal, the city swallowed her with its chaos, kiki horns blaring, traders calling out their goods, schoolchildren weaving through traffic. She barely noticed any of it. Her whole world had narrowed down to one destination, the address in her hand. After asking for directions twice and walking for nearly half an hour, she finally stood before a modest bungalow tucked between two shops. The compound was quiet, except for the faint sound of a radio playing high-life music inside. Anita hesitated at the gate, her palms damp. What if this was another dead end? What if Ngozi denied everything? What if she slammed the door in her face? Still, she knocked. The sound of footsteps approached. The gate creaked open, and a woman in her late 40s stepped out. She was tall, with sharp cheekbones and tired eyes. Her wrapper was tied hastily at the chest, as though she had been interrupted while doing house chores. "Yes. Who are you looking for?" the woman asked. Anita swallowed hard. "Please, are you Ngozi Okafor?" The woman's eyes narrowed, suspicion flashing across her face. "Who's asking?" "My name is Anita," she said quickly, voice trembling. I'm looking for your sister. Chinya. They told me she lived here with you." For a moment, Ngozi's expression froze. Then, just as quickly, she masked it with a dry laugh. "Oh, no. You must be mistaken. Nobody like that lives here." But Anita had seen it, the flicker in her eyes, the crack in her voice. She pressed forward. "Please, don't lie to me. I know she was here. I have proof from the hospital. The register had your name as her emergency contact." The woman stiffened, her hand tightening on the gate. "You need to leave." Anita's heart twisted. Desperation spilled into her words. "Please, I beg you as a mother. I lost my child. And I know Chinya had something to do with it. If she is here, if she has him, I just want to see him. I won't cause trouble. I only need the truth." Silence. Ngozi looked at her for a long time, as though weighing something heavy inside. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders sagging. "Chinya is not here. She left years ago." Anita's breath caught. Where? Where did she go?" Ngozi's lips trembled. She glanced over her shoulder toward the house before lowering her voice. "She doesn't like people knowing her business. If she finds out I told you anything, it will not end well for me." Anita stepped closer, her eyes shining with tears. "I swear, no one will know. Please, help me. I've been searching for years. I have nothing left but this." For the first time, Ngozi's hard expression softened. She reached into the pocket of her wrapper, pulled out a small piece of paper, and scribbled something quickly. Handing it to Anita, she whispered, "This is where she moved to. Don't say it came from me. And be careful. My sister is not the same person she once was." Anita's fingers trembled as she accepted the paper. The address stared back at her like a beacon and a warning. "Thank you," Anita whispered, her voice breaking. But before she could say more, Ngozi shut the gate with a sharp clang. Anita stood frozen, staring at the slip in her hand. For the first time, she was closer than ever, not to whispers, not to cold trails, but to the door that could finally reveal her son. She pressed the address to her chest and whispered again, her voice stronger than ever. I'm coming for you, my child. No matter what waits for me there, I'm coming. Anita's palms were slick with sweat by the time she reached the quiet neighborhood in Enugu. The slip of paper with the address shook in her trembling hand. She stopped in front of a modest bungalow, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. This was it, the house of the woman who had haunted her thoughts for decades. She knocked. The door creaked open, and there she was. Chinyere Okafor. Older now, with streaks of grey in her hair, her once bright eyes dulled by years of secrets. But Anita recognized her immediately, the sharp jawline, the posture of a nurse who once walked briskly down hospital corridors. For a long moment, silence wrapped around them. Can I help you? Chinyere's voice was guarded. Anita swallowed, forcing strength into her trembling voice. You may not remember me, but I remember you. My name is Anita. Years ago, you delivered my child. Chinyere's lips quivered, though she tried to keep her face blank. I delivered many children. You'll have to be more specific. Anita stepped closer, her eyes wet. Don't do this. My son was taken from me. And you were there. I need the truth, Chinyere. Please. Where is my child? The words cracked the wall Chinyere had built around herself. Her shoulders sagged as tears welled in her eyes. You shouldn't have come, Anita. I had to, Anita pressed, voice breaking. I deserve to know what happened. Chinyere shut the door halfway, then opened it again as though fighting an inner battle. Finally, she motioned Anita inside. The sitting room was small, simple, with faded curtains and family pictures lining the wall. Chinyere lowered herself onto a chair, her hands trembling. You want the truth, she whispered. Then you must be ready for the pain that comes with it. Anita leaned forward, every muscle tight. Chinyere's voice cracked. The night you gave birth, your husband came to me with money. He begged me to get rid of your baby, to sell him off, make sure you never laid eyes on him. He said, you didn't deserve to raise that child. Anita's whole body shook. That same night, another woman gave birth, Chinyere went on. But she died. No relatives, no husband, no one to claim her child. In my panic, I switched them. I gave that child to you. I told you he was yours. And I kept your real son. Anita's tears spilled. So the boy I raised is not your blood, Chinyere finished. But you gave him love, Anita. He is yours in every way that matters. Nothing can change that. Anita's lips trembled. And my real son? Where is he? Chinyere hesitated, then stood. She walked into a back room and returned with a tall young man, his eyes wide, uncertain. This is Emmanuel, she said softly. Your son. I couldn't throw him away. I raised him. But he belongs to you. Anita froze. Every nerve in her body screamed with recognition. The shape of his face, the arch of his brows, the very aura he carried, it was like looking into a mirror of her younger self. Her knees buckled, and she wept openly. Emmanuel's chest rose and fell as he stared at her, his lips shaking. Mother! His voice broke. Anita's cry pierced the room. She threw her arms around him, clutching him as if afraid the world would snatch him away again. My son, my son. Tears ran down Emmanuel's face as he returned her embrace, the bond sealed in that instant. When Anita finally stepped out of Chinyere's house, Emmanuel walked beside her. She looked at him, then thought of the two boys she had raised at home. And the boy she believed was hers, though not of her blood. 4 sons. 4 different stories. 4 pieces of her heart. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with questions, pain, and a truth that could tear everything apart. But for the first time in decades, Anita felt whole. Her stolen son was finally with her. and she vowed never to lose him again.